The Hamilton Center for Civic Inclusion is a significant community asset. It brings people together, it drives policy change, and it supports community building.
The role of the Hamilton Center for Civic Inclusion is one of anti-oppression and anti-racism work. We do diversity, inclusion, and equity here in the city of Hamilton, working with community partners pretty much from every single cultural community background. It is a place where everybody can come to find their voice. It is not a center that speaks on behalf of people, it simply offers them the megaphone.
The climate in Hamilton is only continuing to get scarier for racialized people and Black people in our city, but programs like this create a space where we can talk about it, where you can understand that it's not your individual experience, that you're part of a greater picture, and you can develop the tools to do something about it.
We bring some uncomfortable topics into the foreground. We meet with different organizations to talk to them about how their organizations can be more reflective of the city and the folks they are working with.
One of the things that we're recognizing is that for our youth, it's not about skill sets, it's about opportunities. And so by providing early opportunities to connect our youth with really incredible mentorship opportunities, they can begin to see a future beyond what is presented to them in the media, perhaps reflected to them in their communities.
So we talked about policing in Hamilton and policing in schools and how that impacted them. We took 50 Black youth to Queen's Park to meet Black elected officials so that they could imagine being in a space that has traditionally left them out. We also had a session on Blackness and Indigenous solidarity. We also had a session on art and expression and how we have historically used art and hip-hop and pop culture to really express ourselves and take up space.
And so our job is to capture the picture of communities and folks that are marginalized and that are excluded, and then to relay that information back to the city to say, hey, look, these are voices that are not being heard, or these are voices that are being pushed out. And it's important to ensure that those voices are reflected in every decision that the city takes, because excluded and marginalized communities are still part of Hamilton.
Civic inclusion to me means participation, being a part of the table, a part of the decision-making process. That's civic inclusion, getting involved in your community, getting involved in voting, in running for office, having a say at the town hall meeting. It means I belong, I'm here, and I have something to say.
The volunteers that we work with, the organizations that we work with, and folks that we collaborate with, we all are trying to ensure that that footprint is one that brings the city together, and that's why we have the mantra of Hamilton for all.
I would love to be in a city that actually doesn't require the Hamilton Center for Civic Inclusion. I would love to live in a community, in a country that doesn't need daily reminders of the obvious inequities and injustices that people face. But the reality is that in today's day, now more than ever, we need to have institutions that are willing to speak truth to power, that recognizes the lived experience of people when they're dealing with racism and discrimination and bigotry, one that champions individuals as well as entire marginalized communities. The role of the Hamilton Center for Civic Inclusion is really to provide a conscience for the discussions around injustice and inequality.